Very Keen-Louie. Welcome once again.
Once again, back together again. The band's
Yes,
back.
from another show. I'm so excited because we had an interview for the podcast 4 years ago. I can't believe time flies. It was in the
Was it
middle of the
during
pandemic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah. And you had just come to the Playhouse, right?
I started at the Playhouse about a year before the pandemic hit because we were in the midst of doing Fly. And I remember running into an understudy rehearsal saying, everybody has to go home. And that was a chunk of time ago.
Yeah, I remember that it was like, is this show happening? Is it not? Are we? Let's wait. Oh, let's wait a week. Oh, let's wait until April.
We'll be back. We'll be back in 2 months. Don't worry, everybody.
2 years later.
I know, but we're back.
We're back, and boy, is in San Diego, well, all around, but San Diego has brought so many and challenging productions. And you obviously at the Playhouse, these things like The Outsiders, having celebrities come down and then being like, I'm going to produce this for Broadway. That's awesome to have. And always, if it's in your city, even better.
We're San Diego. I talk to friends who live and work in different cities around the country, and they are amazed at how the theater community rallied like as a real community here and lifted up each other, and how we're seeing audiences coming back in a way that they aren't coming back in other cities. And I think I just saw you at the Theater Critics Circle Awards last week, and it was such a true testament and celebration of how this community is like, we're not just going to come back, we're going to come back more focused, more intentionally, caretaking better, lifting up each other, supporting each other's work. And I think it was like such a love fest with everybody in that room just saying, we're back and we're doing this, and let's keep doing this together. It's kind of amazing.
It's amazing, and it's just this boost because being in the arts, being in theater, sometimes it's like, what am I doing?
It's hard. It's gotten exponentially harder to create more than it was prior to the pandemic. And I think there's just, having said that, there's like a renewed passion for creating work now that I've not seen in my career in the theater, that is also really exciting because I feel like we're all coming back with a real sense of why. Mm-hmm. And everybody who has like survived on the other side of the pandemic and who has committed to staying in the field, like that passion burns brighter and more full than I think it did 4 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. And again, if a reference in San Diego, you have the big ones, right? Which is you guys at the La Jolla Playhouse, and then the Old Globe, who stuff comes down here to be checked out, then it goes. Sometimes that's not the plan, and sometimes it's so good, then it becomes the plan, and things like that. But now the smaller theaters too are, not that they didn't do before, but now it's like what you said, it's burning brighter and bigger, and people are like, hey, we want to do this too. We want to stage this musical too. We want to stage this 25-person cast show.
Well, it's like the Ferryman. That's posted stamp up a stage. It's like, oh no, we're going to backyard doing August Osage County. It's like, no, we're coming back. We're coming back with a capital B. And I think that's like kind of amazing that people are saying, if we're going to do it, let's do it big. Let's do it the way we wanted to do it, because there were 2 years where we couldn't do it. So let's like make our stamp on it. I think it's kind of awesome.
It is awesome, and there's so much to see, and it's so good, and it just, and going back to the Craig Noll Awards was like, it recognizes the best of theater in San Diego, and it's just a big old party where everybody comes together and we celebrate. La Jolla Playhouse was a big winner for several shows and categories. So congratulations on that.
Yeah.
For people that are not familiar, you go to the other episode and you figure out this man's life, but which I'm going to put up here. Yeah, we have to keep it going.
Yeah.
How to get those views. But in your life at the Playhouse, you're going now on your third right? Role, position, right?
Yes, I've been here 5 years. We've changed my job now 3 times. The quick thumbnail story. I was at the Old Globe for 7 years. I started
Mhm.
as an associate producer and became an associate artistic director there. And then about 5 years ago, I left the Playhouse to come to, left the Globe to come work at the Playhouse. And I started as the producing director. Actually, the job that I had interviewed for was associate artistic director, replacing the incredible Jaime Castañeda, who sort of went off to start his own freelance directing career and is very successful. But what happened was I ended up replacing somebody who was very much an artist.
Mhm.
And led with that and was a brilliant artist in his own right. And I sort of came in as somebody whose career has been built on artistic producing. And so that's why we shifted the job when I arrived, because the Playhouse really focuses on doing world premiere work. We really see ourselves as an incubator for new work in the country, and it's a really important mission for Christopher Ashley, our artistic director, to really be not just a place that supports and premieres new plays and musicals premiering at our theater, but also supporting all of those different artists in various stages of development. And what the theater really needed and identified sort of through the interview process was they needed a producer. They needed somebody to shepherd and guide all of this new work, because it's so hands-on. It is so, everything's constantly changing on
Mhm.
any given day. And so I started as that, and then we came back from the pandemic. I became the executive producer because we made a shift where we took on more producing responsibility and really took on, as we talked about in the other episode, which Alejandro's pointing to, the um, the accessibility, the inclusion work that we were doing within the theater, and my job combined focusing on that work institutionally with producing. The idea being, when you intertwine the person who's in charge of producing with who's in charge of all the EDIA work, those two things get intertwined because it's constantly being brought up in every single conversation, because my job intersects with every single department as producer of the subscription season and really overseeing the day-to-day artistic operations of the theater. And now, because we're now back and we're really figuring out how to continue to solidify our mission of doing this work, plus thinking about how do we build upon this work that we're doing, what my job now as artistic producing director is shifting into as well is much more forward thinking strategic planning. How do we not just shore up and really make sure that we have the resources to do the work we're doing, but also how do we make sure that we're creating more opportunities, not just for artists to premiere work on our stages, but our work that's getting done in the community, free work that's getting done for and with the community. I think about our learning engagement projects, etc., to keep building upon this mission that we started 40 years ago. So that's what the shift has been.
I love
But
it.
yes, 3 different titles in 5 years. It's been a journey.
Yeah, I bet. And it's this thing of people think, oh, theater, oh, the stage, right? But it's it's way more like you said, and it's kind of integrating all the stuff that comes, which is like audience development, the youth, right? Being really inclusive and diverse and keeping an eye on that.
Yeah, and it's the big thing we believe here, which is why I'm here and why I'm really committed to what we're doing in this place and the people who work here, is that everybody is on board with the idea that in creating a space and creating processes that are more inclusive, that are more accessible, that are much more people focused, the art that gets created is actually better, because the artists and the staff in the room who are working on the project feel much more comfortable in taking risks
Mhm.
and sort of really being their authentic selves. And as we know, sort of the best art that we see, I look at a piece like Is It Thursday Yet, is when you create a room for an artist to just be completely raw and exposed in a way where they feel supported in that. And you see it hit the audience in a different way, because those artists are coming to the theater on stage every night, showing up and giving their all and feel supported in being able to do that 8 times a week, which is not an easy thing to do for an artist.
Mm-mm.
And so that's really been our focus since we came back, is how do we make sure that this place focuses on the individual, because in focusing on the individual, the whole is better.
Mhm.
And I'm seeing that, which I'm grateful for, not just focusing on the artist in that, but also the staff that's creating this work day to day. Because, look, we do 6 almost entirely world premieres a season. And then we do Without Walls Festival, which is a giant
Mhm.
outdoor site-specific theater festival. We're in the rehearsal right now for Abiba and the Tall Grass, which is our pop tour show, which travels around free to schools over the course of, 6 weeks. And then we've got all of our learning engagement programs, from our veterans playwriting workshop to a partnership that we have. Speaking of another incredible theater in town, Moxie Theater, we're partnering with them to work with Voices of Our City, which is a choir made up of the unsheltered population here in San Diego. And we are working with them to create an original musical where they are creating their own songs and the script and telling the story of sort of what life is like for that population.
Mhm.
So all of that happens, and there's a year-round staff there that's making sure that it's all happening behind the scenes, and that staff needs to get taken care of too, because it's not easy, and we're being asked to sort of give a lot of ourselves too, because we believe in this thing. And so I'm just seeing like kinder conversations. I'm seeing more focused conversations. Not that folks aren't tired, of course, but I think
Yeah.
there's a different level of appreciation I hope people feel when they come to work here. Of We are here to create the new and the next in American theater. That's our mission, but we also are working really hard to take care of you while you do that.
Mhm. Hmm. Cool.
Yeah,
The yeah, historically, the Playhouse has been like that, bringing all these new and like Rent, just starting there. But also historically in American theater, and I'm gonna go there, you know how I am. Audiences look a certain way.
yeah,
In your time there, has it come upon where and the audiences are also very vocal and I don't like this. Why are you making me uncomfortable? Why are you doing this? I just want to come and be entertained or
sure.
forget about my problems or whatnot. And this is not it. How are you guys handling that? I know with the programs and all that, but there has to be, for it to be healthy and to evolve, there has to be a shift. And in San Diego, all throughout San Diego, that shift is really slow. So, what are your thoughts on that? How do you see it? I see it that way from my side, obviously.
Yeah,
How do you see it?
I think that you need to do work that matters to you as a place, and we are always in conversation about what does that mean for our audience. But look, like just this season that we're about to close with Redwood right now, like I look at that this entire season of 6 pieces. We open the season with the piece all about the life of Billie Jean King, a queer trailblazer for not just the field, but also women's rights in general, not just in sports, because with the work that she did trickled down to a much larger conversation.
Yep.
And in that play, there were conversations about the right for women to choose about her own body throughout the course of the play, about racism, about homophobia, right? So that's the first show of our season. Then we did Isn't Thursday Yet, which was a beautiful modern dance piece, though, like stylistically nothing like what the audience sees,
Amazing.
choreographed beautifully by Sonia Taye and Jen Freeman, who was at the center of it, about Jen's late in life diagnosis on the autism spectrum. That piece came to us as a seed of an idea, and we agreed to program it after a conversation with them, and we really went into an active developmental process with them. But we believed in what they wanted to do, and pre-pandemic we had started a partnership with National Disability Theater to create a piece for our pop tour about disability. And so
Mhm.
we said to each other, this was an important partnership that we have. We've said we wanted to do work for and with the disability community. Here's an artist at the highest possible caliber to create that. We should do it. So we just said we're going to do it. The third piece we did was Sumo, gorgeous play about sumo wrestling, but really about sort of like Asian men finding their power in society in a way that they've not ever had that on stage before. So we did that. Then we did Hunter Thompson, which, like, in its own crazy way, was this wildly patriotic show about the belief in America as an experiment and an idea, and how people who are quote unquote pushed to the fringes of society actually are the people who are making this country great, I think was kind of an amazing thing. Then we did Babbitt with, yes, it starred Matthew Broderick, but was very much so tapping into politics of our time that are still relevant and thorny about, you know, who leads and who should lead, and what does it mean to feel marginalized in that, and what happens when things get pushed in one direction and a population pushes back. And now we're doing Redwood with, yes, that stars Adina Menzel, but is truly, I think, going to surprise audiences because it's a meditation on grief and loss, and how people process really tragic grief differently. And so I look at all those pieces, and yes, there are the thing that I love about it is that there are artists at the highest possible caliber intertwined with artists who are just starting out in their careers. Sumo is one of the first plays by Lisa Sanaya Drang, and I think heralds her as a really incredible, exciting up and coming writer, diverse in the stories that were being told and how they were told, diverse in who they were told by. But, and I think this sort of to the big question that you asked, each of them had a giant beating heart. Each of them were wildly emotionally accessible, even though they were about complicated and thorny issues. You know, and next season we're doing the same thing. We're doing, you know, Johnny and June. Yes, it's Johnny and June, but it's about addiction. It's about addiction through the eyes of their child and what that means. You know, we're doing Derecho, I Love by Noel Vinas, directed by Delicia Turner Sonnenberg, about a Latina running for office and what she feels like she needs to push down from her identity to become electable, and how that comes into conflict with what her sister wants, which is to reclaim her identity in a bigger way, to create art about it. So that's like a very political play. And then we're doing Sasha Velour. Drag is being outlawed in many places across the country. But look, that one came to us. That one's still in early development. But
I love her.
I know. I love it. She came. She was here and enchanted our staff.
She's so artistic. It's like she's so aesthetic, artistic. She has this eye. Her soul comes out. It's like weird. It's weird. Her artistry is just so.
It's incredible, and she's being partnered with Moises Kaufman of Tectonic Theater Project, who's an incredible director, and they're going to create a real celebration of drag that's going to be playing in the months leading up to the elections, when you know drag's going to be a hot button political idea, but Sasha's a remarkable artist, and drag is an important art form, and we felt like that was important. Primary Trust, not a world premiere, but a West Coast premiere, and that one is just a beautiful play by Ebony Booth that's about kindness and a community coming together to help somebody on the fringes of society, and that's going to be playing during the election cycle. And then we're doing Christmas Carol. Your local theater company presents A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens again, long title, by Anna Munch, beautiful play. You know,
everybody knows that show, so it's hilarious that this take, right?
And it's actually like a funny but really beautiful meditation on like what is a life lived, because it's set in the green room of a regional theater doing Christmas Carol. Starts with a young man right out of college saying like, I'm going to do this, get my equity weeks, and I'm going on to bigger and better things. And then tracks every year as he gradually goes from a small part to playing Scrooge and starts asking like, what did my life amount to? It taps into that thing that I love in holiday movies, which is like there's a little bit of a bittersweet melancholy that happens during the holidays because you're finishing up a year, and yet in finishing up a year, you're also looking to the new year for something different. And that's very much what the play is about. And then we're doing 3 Summers of Lincoln, this giant epic musical, but really about Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, and about how this country came together in a moment to do the right thing, led by political leaders who were willing to risk their careers for the betterment of the country. And I hope it's a celebration of what this country is and can be, and hopefully will continue to be, with a score by a young musician, composer, actress, Crystal Monet Hall, that's gonna like hit people right in the gut. And so like that season has a lot of complicated ideas, but it's about people. It's emotionally compelling, right? And so and so I have seen the audiences change a bit since we've come back, and I think you have to let the work speak for itself. Yes, you need to do all the additional things of audience development. We keep talking about sort of ticket prices. How do we get the word out about the cheaper tickets that we have, the school programs that we do to make sure students from high school are getting in to see the show for free, college student access, all of those things. But if we weren't in our soul doing work that we felt mattered to us, all of those things don't matter because the work itself wouldn't be speaking to this moment.
Mm-hmm.
My hope is that
Exactly.
audiences will continue to develop over time while also bringing along our audiences who have been supporting us for decades, who are excited about the work that we're doing. One of my favorite things is when I first started, we did a focus group, and I went to the longtime subscriber focus group. And one of the things somebody said in it, which
Love
I
the
really
title.
appreciated, yeah, which I really appreciated was, look, I'm old, but two things. One, people forget that people who are quote unquote old, they actually want to continue learning. I keep coming here because I want to continue learning new ideas, things that I haven't even thought about before. And B, he said, can you please make sure that you're continuing to diversify this audience? I don't want to sit around people who look like me. It makes me feel old. When I'm in a house that is mixed, I feel young and I feel excited to be here. And I was like, okay, if that's where you are, longtime subscriber,
Yeah.
then we can work with that, and that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. With that, obviously, I'm not in any way against, but obviously, being in this business and seeing this work, you're like, man, like this needs to be out there. Like everybody needs to come see this. And then obviously you have all the steps and the challenges and the blocks and whatnot that you have been mentioning. But yeah, like there's this show, speaking of, again, the smaller theaters at Scripps Ranch, Chapati, which is a show that has been produced, right? But it's about that too. It's about the older generations, and that's always tossed to the side, right? Like,
Yeah,
he's old, she's old, they're old. They don't need to learn. They don't need to feel love. They don't need company. They don't need to go out and all these things that really you think about it and you're like, I'm headed there. Like I need to really, and I think that all these types of works also kind of have these, because it's not just you having the dialogue, it's you getting this inner dialogue where you're like, oh man, like what do I need to do in my life? Or how does my life looking right now? Because it's a matter of age. It's not culture, race, where you come from. Like we're all gonna be, if we make it, we're all gonna be that age,
it's true. I think that's right. I also think it's believing in your audience that your audience is along for the ride and never feel like you are, especially in programming, pandering to what you think the audience is going to accept. And it's going in believing that they will accept it if we do it right, and that there is something in there that they can emotionally latch onto. That is how we look at programming every year. We
Mhm.
don't think, oh, I wonder what we can program because it's going to sell a bunch of tickets, because then it never will. You're
Mhm.
programming something that you can't control any of that. And I look at, again, Babbitt and Redwood, yes, two major Hollywood stars. Both
Yeah.
organically came to us though, because Chris had been developing that play with Matthew for years, and Redwood came to us in part because Chris and our director Tina Landau went to college together, and she said, "Hey, I've written this musical. We're not done. Will you give us some space to just finish writing it?" And Chris was like, "Let's make sure that we read it." And we read it and we fell in love with it. And it just so happened, right, that Adina Menzel was attached. But we always, as we say, lead with the art, because that's the thing that's most important. Like, does it hit us in the heart? And if it does, let's pull the strand and see where it takes us.
Yeah. Well, with Babbitt, I was like, where is Sarah Jessica Parker?
She did come to Canes to see it perform.
Man, I knew it wasn't going to be like all, but she was living her best life in New York with her line, and then they went to London to do their play. So I was like,
Yeah.
fine, I'll forgive, right? But also, and feel free, but anything that you can say
About
in regards true, not true, false, I don't know, about Sarah Porkalob.
What about Sarah Porkalob?
Nothing with the Playhouse. There's nothing happening.
I feel like it's a leading question, but my true answer is there's nothing other than my incredible love for Sarah, having seen her show at Diversionary, and also Sarah did a play reading for us in New York, but that play is still in development.
Okay.
But it wasn't a solo show. It was one. She was one of like 6 people in the cast.
Oh,
But I have an immense amount of love for Sarah, and I just thought Dragon Baby was one of my favorite things I saw last season.
Oh, okay. I was like, anything happening that we should know?
Also, Alejandra, this is like gonna be available to the public, so I wouldn't say anything to you on this.
I don't know. You never know, right? So just to start wrapping up, because there's we can talk hours and hours and hours. And going back at what you were saying about ticket prices and these things, what would your answer be when you're talking to someone? Because obviously, if we talk amongst each other, we're here, we work in this business. It's not, the rest of the civilians, I would say, right? When people say, yes, I don't go to the theater because it's expensive.
Yeah, I say you probably paid $500 to go see Beyonce.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Like, look, and the reality is not everybody. I can't pay $500 to go see Beyonce, right? So, like, the reality is that I think you make time and money if you can for things that you want to do, and part of our job here at specifically Playhouse, because this is where I work, is to make sure that we're creating art that people are excited about and want to see, and that there are different price points to see things, right? So, like, for Redwood, you could have gotten a ticket. It's sold out before we started rehearsals, but you could have gotten a ticket that was in the $40 to $50 range. You just needed to be on top of your planning, because the tickets didn't sell out within a day. It took, it sold out very quickly, but you had access to tickets to buy for about 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. It's like you just have to be on top of these things. Follow us on social media to find out about all those things. But it's hard, because on the one hand, I think there's the part of me that remembers being a poor college student and saying, like, yeah, tickets should be $20. Having said that, like, I understand too well now the finances of producing theater, and the reality is things have not gotten cheaper.
No.
And the reality is we're being much more intentional about how people are getting paid. So I can't argue that the artists in these rooms, I'm looking at this room because I'm looking at the theater right now, shouldn't be getting paid a livable wage, and that costs money. And that's not just the actors, it's the crew, it's the staff who live and work here in San Diego. So people have to get paid, right? You're looking at inflation all over the place for stuff because people are asking and demanding a much more livable wage, and I completely understand that. But there are access to tickets that are cheaper. You just need to get a little bit better about planning, which I understand because I'm not always the best planner. But it's a thing that we continue to grapple with. Subscriptions obviously are a little bit of a bigger outlay of money up front, but there are subscriptions that aren't that expensive, and you have access to all 6 shows, and those tickets are definitely cheaper than a single ticket. Mm-hmm. It all goes back to planning, and I want us to, and we are continuing to talk about what is the ticket price and how do we make sure that we are really thinking about that. I also say that, like, as we want to diversify our audiences, that doesn't mean that our diverse audience can't afford a ticket.
Correct.
Is they just have chosen not to buy that ticket yet. And what do we need to continue to do to make sure that they are getting nudged in that direction? And I believe, as I look at the programming that we're doing, this work, I think, is hopefully in conversation with the larger population than it has been before, to help them get in the door at least once a year. And then maybe when they're at that age, because, like, I'm not at the age now to subscribe. Like, my husband and I can't plan our lives around a subscription in that way. But I hope when we're at that age, I mean, we will, because I love the theater and I work in the theater, but, like, we hope that we can get people coming once or twice a year, and then when they're the age and they feel ready to subscribe, that they're going to, because they will have grown an affection for this place and are excited to take leap with us on a full season of shows, all of which mostly are world premieres, which they will know nothing about. And the fact that our audience wants to come in and do that every year as a subscriber is kind of a remarkable thing given where we were 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, where there was no theater being created.
Yeah, it was. I look back
It was
at it.
dark.
It's so dark and so
Dark.
unknown. You're like, what's, and again, being in theater, your life is planned out for years in advance. So
I'm looking at a calendar right now that is 16 months.
When that gets pulled from under you, you're like, my life is over. Like, I need to know where I'm going to be in May 2025. Okay. I'm not comfortable not knowing. Like, it's really, it's a thing. And you obviously in these 5 years going through the mission, observing, putting it all in there in order to make it happen, there's been several accomplishments. Is there something that you're still not there yet, or you're almost there and you're like, I can just touch it, or something that you would like to accomplish in now this new role doing all this integrated stuff?
I think it's figuring out how to continue to build up a more solid ground for this place. I mean, the reality is, I think we're in a fortunate place where we can do 6 new pieces a year, but we're still figuring out our muscles and how to do that, because we're all learning, I think, in real time how to come back still, even 2 years in. And I'm seeing artists who are like also pulled into a million different directions because they're taking on multiple projects at the same time. And so how to make sure that we are safeguarding our processes and producing shows while also giving artists the breathing space they need. I was just talking to an actor in Redwood, and I'm saying, how's your time away from New York? And he's like, there are all these things that I'm missing. And I said, but here you just get to focus on one thing. You're a person. You can go on a walk.
Yeah.
You can sit outside. And I think that's actually really healthy. That's a really healthy mindset, because that's how you're going to build a career, is making sure that you're also making time for yourself as a person. And so how do we take all of the wild things that need to come together to create these pieces that we love, while also making sure that we can figure out how to make sure we have enough resources to do that in a way that actually allows people time to breathe and space to breathe. And that's the sort of that's what I'm interested in figuring out, or at least continue to work towards over the next couple of years, is how do we continue to better support the art that we're creating in a way that we are really proud of, and also really, again, allows people to just be really great at what they do, while also feeling like they have a moment to just catch their breath.
Totally. Yeah. It moves so fast, and it's such hard work. And sometimes, again, looking in, these things are not taken into consideration, especially because it's something, again, that, clapping is involved, and going in and getting a drink. And sometimes there's humans behind this that also need to be entertained, that also want to go to the movies, or, want to have a drink. And it's such hard work. And it's also, sometimes the holidays are not there, or the 9 to 5 certainly is not there. So it's different. And I think all that comes into play, as well as the ticket price and the production and cost and value and all that stuff.
I think it's all these things. I'm just truly grateful that people are coming back. We want more people to come back, of course, but that there's not just a support for new work in San Diego, but also real pride, not just the artists, but the audiences that come, our donors who help support us financially. There's a pride in this work getting created here, and I think that just buoys everybody in wanting to continue to do the work and make it happen.
Totally. Well, my friend, thank you for coming on board again.
Oh my God, anytime.
When we got the announcement, I was like, I need to talk to him again. And then I was like, oh my God, it's been so long. How could this be? But it's another situation that has, happened with all this coming back and moving. But here we are, and I'm glad, and I'm looking forward to another great season with you all. And yeah, I always try not to fangirl or misbehave, which I haven't, but the older you get, that kind of, but then you're there and you're like, ooh, should I
No,
say
but I
that?
no, but I hope should we all retain that spirit of fangirl in us, truly. Like I do, I have those moments. Now in my job, I can't actually do it because
Yes,
like
I'm
I have
telling
to
you.
maintain an aura of quote unquote professionalism in my producing job. But there were moments where I'm in the audience watching something and I just feel that tingle again, and I think that tingle is what keeps us going, truly.
Absolutely.
So keep fangirling.
I know, right?
Embrace your inner fangirl.
Yeah, totally. Anything that you would like to add or say to people watching out there?
Come to the theater. I mean, hopefully come to La Jolla Playhouse, but go to any theater in your neighborhood and support what they're doing, big or small. We need audiences to come back. We need people to donate money. We need people to support the work that we're doing. And I'm to you, Alejandra. I'm glad that you have a podcast like this, talking not just about the art but the business behind it, because I think to your point, not many people know what goes on behind the scenes, and I hope you
Mhm.
continue to talk to people on the administrative side about what they're experiencing, because I think it's just as important as an artist talking about how they developed and created a piece, because it's an ecosystem of all of this, and I'm glad you're highlighting the larger ecosystem here in San Diego because it's a really special thing.
It is special, and many people don't know. And just the territory itself. I mean, Tijuana is also a
Incredible art
huge,
scene.
yeah, like that's how we met. And
Yeah,
yes, and they've crossed the border to see the work that's being done over there. And now, the Globe has a position, which Valeria Vega, which she came from all these dynamics. And it's wonderful to see how everything has been evolving and it keeps going. And it's what we were aiming towards. It's to have this flow, obviously with the traffic and everything, but whatever. Another thing that the pandemic kind of, trickled or
oh,
brought or ruffled
yeah,
or
oh,
whatever. But yeah,
yeah,
for it to be just one thing and people to come and go and have this flow and everybody to be aware of this art scene that's so rich and beautiful and vast, and that's not just concerts, and that if you went to that Beyonce concert, you planned for that concert. So it's the same thing
it's
doing
true.
it with theater. So yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that example up. But yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you for giving me the space. I wish you even more success and more audiences and more great works to come here in San Diego. And you never know, and beyond, because it's never limited to territory, right? It goes,
Yeah,
and
it's
it
very
has,
it's
yeah.
it's very real, and I look forward to being on in 3 years.
Yeah, let's not wait
That's not
3 more years. Let's do
not
a follow-up of what happens
yes.
with the season, and
I love that.
pin it there.
Yeah, pin it there. Totally right.
Well, thank you everybody for joining, and remember that here we just don't start from zero, we start from another zero. Until the next one.
Thanks.